Hey, welcome back to Law&Crime. My name is Bob Bianchi. We're going to go a little bit north and a little bit west to Los Angeles, California, where Canadian rapper Tory Lanez is standing trial for allegedly shooting fellow rapper Meghann Thee Stallion. The shooting happened in the summer of 2020 after rapper Meghann Thee Stallion and Tory Lanez, sorry, names I'm not familiar with, attended a party at Kylie Jenner's home, and Lance denied the shooting, not guilty to 3 charges of felony charges stemming from the shooting. The prosecution says Tory Lanez fired multiple shots, striking Meghann in both feet after claiming Lanez was set off after Meghann insulted his skills as a rap artist. Meanwhile, defense claims that Meghann's former friend, Kelsey Harris, was the one that fired the gun. Meghann Thee Stallion is slated to testify in the assault trial today, but our very own Law&Crime senior reporter Meghann Cuniff is there in California courtroom. Meghann, well, I botched that up, names this, that, and the other. That's what happens when you don't know who these folks are, but apparently lots of people in the world do. So Meghann, why don't you take it as to what is happening in this?
Oh, absolutely. This is a very, very big deal in the hip-hop world. I don't know if you can call it the trial of the century, because I think there's been a lot of big trials in the hip-hop world, but this is a very big one. And I was struck yesterday in opening statements. I mean, it was an interesting trial. The attorneys are good, and I was into it, but I definitely got the impression that everyone around me was just gripped by it. Everything is so important. Everything that's said, every word, every piece of evidence that comes up is a huge deal to the people who have been covering this saga for the last 2 years. So it was a packed courtroom yesterday, and things were near pandemonium this morning as people were waiting for Meghann to get in. She had a lot of fans. They had a big banner that said, "We stand with Meghann," and they were out just trying to show her some support as she came in to get ready for her testimony today.
So Meghann, kind of, I don't know why, as you were describing this, and again, it's not a case I've been following, but does it have the kind of overtones of the Johnny Depp, Amber Heard kind of celebrity, both sides, people are going on both sides advocating for one or the other here?
I think the defense is trying to make it out to be that way, but as somebody who just walked into the courtroom and sat down, it seems like a pretty easy case for the prosecutors. Lanez didn't actually mention a shooting or a gun in his apologetic call or his text, but if you just listen to the call, I think it's going to be easy for the jury to conclude that that's what he was talking about. It's going to depend on how the evidence comes in. I think Meghann is obviously a huge witness, and her testimony is critical, but I think the biggest witness is going to be Kelsey Harris, who's her, I think, former friend. There's a debate on whether they're still friends. Lanez's attorney says they haven't spoken since the incident, and his defense is that Kelsey is actually the shooter here. So his case could easily fall apart in his exam of Kelsey, or it could come all together in his exam of Kelsey.
No, you may know this or you may not, but I'm always interested in this question. About what is he facing if he's convicted, and were there any plea offers prior to this, or did he just go straight to trial?
I'm not sure if there were any any plea deals offered. I think just judging by the case and just the way the DA's office worked, I think there would have been something offered to him. But his stance on this the whole time has been that he's innocent and he's looking forward to trial. So he faces some pretty serious consequences if convicted. The most serious charge is the assault charge that could get him, I think it's 22 years and 8 months in prison, and then being Canadian, he also could be deported based on the conviction. So the stakes are really high here.
Yeah, and we always love to ask, I mean, there's so many things that go on inside these courtrooms. What is it like in terms of the judging and the lawyering? Is it extremely contentious, matter of fact? Give me an idea of the flavor of what the attitude is in the courtroom.
They seem to get along somewhat. I saw some cordiality between them. I mean, I think it's a typical adversary system. I was impressed by the skill of the prosecutor. He's a couple years younger than the prosecutors in the Harvey Weinstein trial, but I thought he gave a great opening, just his performance and his form. The questioning of the witnesses wasn't very difficult, but it seemed to go well for him. And Lanez's lawyer has a good courtroom presence too. He definitely kind of embraces the role as the defense attorney for, rappers accused of assault. Or I covered another case he did where he represented a corrupt Homeland Security agent who got sentenced to 10 years for bribery. So he kind of plays the casting call role of the criminal defense attorney for these guys pretty well. So it's an interesting scene in there for sure.
Okay, so you listened to the prosecutor's opening and the defense's opening, watching some of that testimony coming in. Right now, if you had to evaluate the case, and we're not holding you to it because we know it's not a fair question, but who's in the lead right now in your mind, given that the prosecution has to prove its case to all jurors beyond a reasonable doubt?
I think right now, given the phone call and the text messages and
Okay, well, there you go with the realities of it. So let me just really, yeah. Hey, Meghann, we're having some problems with your audio. I appreciate it. I think we got most of that. Yeah, so thank you very much. Keep up the great work out there. Maybe we'll get back to you a little bit later on. With that, let me just bring in the guests real quick. Marie, what do you think about the case? Thoughts about it and the manner in which it's progressing, if you have any knowledge of it?
I don't have extensive knowledge, but the first thing that comes to mind is if she was shot with a gun, how did they assess her injuries? I'm also a registered nurse. I think if she's saying at first she got cut with glass because she didn't want to report him, how do you confuse getting cut with glass with getting shot in the foot with actual bullets from a gun? I would need to hear some medicals, and it would be more than a he say, she say, because gunshot and glass are two different things. I think there's a lot more we need to see before we can give an opinion on this.
Judge, I'm curious about your thoughts, and if you haven't been following the case, because I know that you guys weren't prepped on this particular topic that you'd be discussing about it. I'm also interested if you have just a general opinion. I always love to know what the plea offers are on these cases, because that is a critical point where the defense has to make a decision. Do you take the lesser plea and have guaranteed what the sentence is? You do it and move on with your life? Or do you make that strategic decision that if you go to trial, which typically you don't get the benefit of a favorable plea offer, could lead to a lot more time? I'm sure you've experienced this as a judge. What are your thoughts?
Well, I'll tell you, first of all, there's nothing at all like the cases where multimillionaires are, hostile and fighting each other and shooting at each other. I mean, we love to see those stories. They burn up the news hours. What I think about the case is, sure, it should be assessed like any other criminal case where a defendant is accused of shooting at another victim. It's very difficult for us as a society to separate the celebrity of those involved. This was supposed to be after a party at Kylie Jenner's house. So the potential parade of folks who we follow on Twitter and Instagram and who we read about on news blogs is going to be more enveloping than, unfortunately, to the jury a lot of times than the actual facts itself. What I think about this is that the concentration will be hard to keep, but ultimately, we should be approaching this the same as we do every other criminal case that comes on our dockets. Yeah,
that is such a great point. To Marie's point, I tell you, one of the funniest anecdotes I've ever had in a courtroom was when a defendant was telling the judge that he shot the guy with a .45, and the victim stood up in the courtroom and said, "That felt like a .22," and the defendant looks at him and says, "No, man, it was a .45." So, there's always some level of entertainment that goes on. Thank God nobody got killed in that particular case. And on that note, we're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back.